NFL running backs are not happy. A top 12 wide receiver has found a new home, and NBA teams are not trading their stars as easily as they would like to be. This is the Rival Fantasy Podcast. Let's talk about it. You are now listening to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. Let's go. What up, everybody? Welcome to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Maligno. I appreciate you for joining me as always. Please, before we get started, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Help us in this YouTube algorithm. It is a tough one. We have fun with it. We enjoy it. Don't forget, guys, we answer all comments. So join us in the discussion, whether you have questions, feedback, thoughts, anything, your opinion on the discussion that we're having right now, drop it in the comments. We want to talk with you. We want to connect with you. And if you want to connect with us off of YouTube, or say you're listening on a podcast app, then go ahead and follow us on any of the social platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, all of them. We're at Rival Fantasy, RIVAL Fantasy, FANTASY. You will find us there. If you let us know that you're following us and that you watch the show or you listen to the podcast, I will make sure that we follow you back. Sometimes you guys get lost in the sauce. There's a lot happening. So if you send us that message or that DM, I'll make sure to follow back and show the love back. That's what we're all about here. That's what we're all about at Rival Fantasy. I have our 3 topics for the day. I'm excited about them. We got a little bit of football, a little bit of basketball. Those are the 3 that made the cut this week. Obviously, if I missed something, if you think I missed something, you think something should have been on this episode, drop it again in the comments. Let's go ahead and jump into our top headline of the week. As I talked about at the top of the show, NFL running backs are not happy. And it's not just a couple, it's not just a few, it's a whole lot of them. And it's some of the best in the league, for sure, no question. It's not like, oh, some of the guys are unhappy, but they're not like the highest ranking running backs. They're not the most, famous or productive running backs. No. These are top of the line, top 10 running backs, and they are not happy. And let's talk about why. Let's go ahead and just bring this onto the screen. It'll be the easiest way to discuss this. Adam Schefter tweet here: Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs still have not signed their $10 million franchise tag tender yet, so they can skip all of training camp without getting fined. Since they're not under contract, they would lose game checks only if they miss regular season games. So this here is basically breaking down the fact that Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs did not sign their franchise tender. So they are now basically without a team, right? They're not playing football games. They are not part of the team. Tony Pollard was also on that list of guys who were looking for a new contract up to the deadline moment, but he actually signed his franchise tender previously, so he'll actually play for the Cowboys this year. Right now, we're in this area where we don't know. Will Saquon Barkley sign it? Will Josh Jacobs sign it? It's been a situation where when NFL running backs have done this in the past, it hasn't played out too well for them. If you remember some cases like Le'Veon Bell, for instance, he did the same thing. He had this issue where he didn't feel like the Steelers were paying him the money he deserved, and he did what he did, and it didn't play out so well. It didn't end great. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One, the running back, career is just not a very long arc in terms of, their high end production. So you get these guys who produce really, really great in the beginning of their career, and of course it just tails off. But with other positions, it doesn't tail off so fast. With running back, it tends to tail off a lot faster. So you have the wear and tear of the body, and the ability to skill just naturally declines quicker than other positions. You also have a situation where NFL teams are looking at running backs and they're saying, hey, we don't need a top 10 running back to win a Super Bowl. That's the ultimate goal. Do top 10 running backs help our team? Of course. Is it nice to have a top 10 running back? Of course. But in terms of winning the Super Bowl, history just hasn't dictated that for the last, decade or whatever it may be. And we'll look at that in a second, just to kind of, put it all into perspective to understand what we're talking about when we say, because a lot of people think, what are you talking about? Like, obviously Josh Jacobs helps the Raiders. Obviously Saquon Barkley helps the Giants. We'll get to a graphic in a moment that'll kind of show you what I'm talking about in terms of why teams are not budging on their position in terms of giving these guys more money. And let me just say up front, for me, I of course want these guys to get all the money they can get. I of course believe they deserve more money. I of course think they're significant and they do help teams. Like, as a Raider fan, I would no doubt say that Josh Jacobs was a huge part, put the offense on his back, carry them all the way this past season. But again, they didn't win a Super Bowl, right? They didn't make the playoffs. Like, it didn't happen. And you had one of the top running backs in football. So this is kind of the argument, right? Like, it just doesn't matter to a certain extent, and you'll see teams who will, move on from a running back, a top 10 running back, for instance, in this situation. And then they'll add, they'll have a bunch of different running backs kind of do the job, or they'll find a rookie or a younger guy to do the job. And they may not produce like the one player, like the Josh Jacobs on their own, but as a group, they get the job done still. So it doesn't look as nice. It doesn't look as flashy. It's not like a highlight reel running back necessarily all the time, but they still get the job done. They fit the system. They get the yards needed. They get the touchdowns, and they'll get you there. It doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and just jump over. I thought this was hilarious, so I do want to share this tweet. Um, Matt Miller, NFL Draft Scout on Twitter, he posted this tweet after the news, the deadline passed for guys like Josh Jacobs and Barkley to sign their deals. He said, "Been saying it for years. One, draft a running back. Two, play the running back. If he's good, three, franchise tag that running back one time, and then all over again, one, draft a running back." This tweet, the reason why I'm sharing this tweet is because this is a sentiment that a lot of people have. This is the idea that a lot of teams have, right? Like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna draft a good running back, or just draft a running back. And you could draft, when I say good running back, I don't mean like first round. I mean, like, you could draft them literally in the seventh round. They can go undrafted, whatever the case is. You're gonna play that running back. He's gonna produce. If he's really good, awesome. We're gonna go ahead and franchise tag you one time just so we keep you, so we can get the next running back in the fold at some point, whether we're drafting somebody, whether we're picking up a young player to, kind of replace you next season. And then we're just going to draft one again next year. So this is kind of the pattern that teams follow, and it works, right? This is the pattern that, teams have done for years now, and has been nothing but success for them. So when you have a situation like this is why teams are not paying the Josh, and to be fair, Josh Jacobs did say that he wasn't trying to reset the market, that the money he was asking for wasn't something like that. It was more of the guarantee, in the years. So that's what these guys are worried about, is how much are you guaranteeing me, for how many years. They care about that more, in a sense, because they're protecting themselves, than the amount of money, because you can have a contract that's 20, 30, 40, 50 million, but if you don't guarantee it, the team could just cut you at any point, obviously, and you're not going to get all that money. So that's what their highest concern is. But the reason I was sharing that tweet was because I wanted to show you this. After that tweet came out, players started doing stuff like this. Najee Harris: "I agree with my running back brothers around the NFL. History will show that you need running backs to win. We set the tone every game and run through walls for our team and lead in many ways. This notion that we deserve less is a joke." Again, no one's saying running backs don't matter. No one's saying that running backs are irrelevant and that they don't help teams win games. They're just saying that when it gets to the Super Bowl, the past teams have proven that they don't need to pay a top 10 running back high dollars to win that game. It doesn't matter, right? But it wasn't just Najee Harris. It was also Christian McCaffrey. This is criminal. Three of the best players in the entire league, regardless of position. Again, you're correct. Just doesn't matter to win Super Bowls. Austin Eckler, a guy who's been having this contract situation himself. This is kind of a trash that has artificially devalued one of the most important positions in the game. Everyone knows it's tough to win without a top running back, and yet they act like we are discardable widgets. I support any running back doing whatever it takes to get his bag. We all do. We all support any player that's doing what they got to do to get their bag. Even Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. No one's upset at them. No one's mad at them. No one thinks that they don't deserve money or deserve to be paid well. It's just the fact is the market is the market. On to this last tweet here is Jonathan Taylor. One, if you're good enough, they'll find you. Two, if you work hard enough, you'll succeed. If you succeed, three, you boost the organization, and then doesn't matter, you're a running back. Obviously, he's expressing some sarcasm here, but again, this is the way they're looking at how the NFL is looking at them right now. And so again, it's important to mention that no one is saying running backs don't matter at all. Obviously, it's a position that matters. It's important. What they're saying is that the money that they're asking for and the guarantees that they're asking for don't necessarily have to be met by the teams, because the market is the market, and the market says that they don't need you. They don't need top 10 running back guy to win a Super Bowl. That's just what history shows. That's just what history shows. Until that changes, if that changes, it'll force the market to change. But unfortunately, it has to force it, because the NFL teams are not going to, out of the kindness of their heart, just pay a position more money and in theory hurt their team, right? In theory, you're hurting your team by paying all that money or using the early draft picks because you're doing that on a position that doesn't necessarily carry your team to a Super Bowl. Again, this is just the stats, the data, the history. I'm not knocking running backs. I love running backs. I would love the Raiders to re-sign Josh Jacobs. Obviously, I hope he signs his franchise tag and plays this season and they figure something out. But if not, again, history says it doesn't matter. It is what it is, and the Raiders will figure out what to do next in terms of running back. But let me get to that graphic I was mentioning a second ago with you guys. Here it is. This is from Marcus Mosher at Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. Take a look at the leading rusher from the last 13 Super Bowls and their base salary. Obviously, this doesn't have 2022 on here, which the Chiefs would also fit into the same graphic. It makes total sense within it. But we got all these teams here from 2021 on down. Rams, the running back Cam Akers, his salary. Buccaneers, Leonard Fournette, the running back, his salary. And if you see, we just go down and down here. Chiefs, Damian Williams, Patriots, Sonny Michelle, Eagles, Blunt with Patriots, Blunt also. Broncos, CJ Anderson. Seahawks, the leading rusher was Percy Harvin. Obviously, he's a wide receiver. What's funny is the roster that he has on here is the highest roster. I mean, the highest salary for all these players. Ravens, Ray Rice, $2 million. Giants, Bradshaw, 1.5. James Starks, 320,000, the lowest on this list. Saints, Pierre Thomas. So this is just an idea, right? Again, these are the Super Bowl winners, leading rusher plus their salary. And this is since 2009. Again, in 2022, it's not on this graphic, but the same thing happened all over again, right? And if you think about it, even with the Chiefs, they even drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be their running back. They drafted him, somewhat early, relatively early. And then he doesn't even play in the Super Bowl. It's Isaiah Pacheco who helps them win it. So this is what we're trying to say. In this modern era, and of course, your counter to this could be, well, every team doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. Every team doesn't have Jalen Hurts. Every team doesn't have Tom Brady when he was with the Bucs and won the Super Bowl. Every team doesn't have those quarterbacks. No, you're right. But once you get yourself one of those quarterbacks, and once you get yourself a good offensive line and a good defense, you just don't need the running back. And again, I'm not saying they're worthless. I'm not saying that, they have zero value. I'm saying that the price that they're asking for just doesn't add up to what the history shows. The market is the market. The running backs have to reset that market. They have to push that market and prove why they deserve it. Now, will these guys, be able to take this any further or form some sort of, special union or strike, a running back strike? I have no clue. I think it'll be cool if they do. I don't mind it. I got no problem with anybody, pushing for more money or trying to prove why they deserve more money. I'm never going to knock another man's hustle, never going to knock another man feeds his family. At the same time, I don't think that, Josh Jacobs playing for $10 million a year is a bad thing. I do wish they could have some kind of guarantee. Also, I would love for them to be able to earn more money out the gate. So, like, for instance, a guy like Josh Jacobs, and some people may not like this, right? But say a guy like Josh Jacobs, a running back, well, this is the problem position, right? This is the one position that's really having this issue. So we really only have to adjust it for running backs. When they come out, maybe give them some kind of way to earn incentives or bonuses like you do on on a new contract just for running backs. So if you do earn, top 15 production, top 10 production, top 5 production, there's some sort of incentive for a player to make more money. So this way, early in their career, those first 3, 4, 5 years, they don't feel like they got robbed in some sense. They don't feel like, they weren't making enough money. But again, that is also just the way sports work, right? Like when you get drafted, you make, a lot of money if you're drafted early. You don't make as much money if you're drafted in later rounds. And then, it kind of is the value to the team, right? To get you at a lesser cost. And this way they can build other positions up while they do that. It's kind of like the whole, quarterback situation when you draft a rookie quarterback. Obviously, they get more money out the gate, but while they're on that rookie salary, a lot of teams have to capitalize on players being on rookie salaries. And so this is kind of one of those situations. So it's kind of a benefit, but I think the NFL could budge a little bit, right? They could find a happy place in the middle because no one wants to see Josh Jacobs not play. No one wants to see the running backs unhappy and, not happy with what they're doing or what they're, being paid to do it with for. So definitely if there was some kind of middle ground, I would think it's definitely a better situation. And I would like to see it play out that way personally. obviously the current setup isn't the answer, and that's where we're at with this. Hopefully, again, Josh Jacobs plays, Saquon Barkley plays, they sign their franchise tags, and then next season, we have a better understanding, a better grip, a better expectation for this. Maybe the running backs do make something happen where they're able to resolve this situation a little better. Communication is going to be key, and of course, you know, making the market correct itself. And the only way you can do that is to force their hands by showing why you have this value. Who knows? Next year or this upcoming season, a top flight running back wins the Super Bowl, and then things, opens up the floodgates. We'll see. Maybe that happens. Maybe that's a feel good ending to this. We will see. That's it for the running backs. I want to know your thoughts. Should the NFL just pay them more money because they feel like they deserve it? Or should the running backs understand, hey, this is the market. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. We're making decent money. Just go out there, have fun, keep making that money, and keep working in the background to try to figure out a better way to fix this? Or do you think, hey, they just need an all-out strike, none of them play, it's the only way to make this better, force the NFL's hands, force the team hands? I want to know your thoughts. This is it's an in-depth issue. It gets deep, and there can be multiple ways to approach it. So I'm curious your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. We may share them on the next episode or on social or whatever the case may be, but we'll definitely reply and continue that discussion there in the comments. So let's go ahead and move on to headline number 2. DeAndre Hopkins has found a new team, a new place to call home. It was a big thing. Like he was the last big player out there, I would say, the last wide receiver that we needed to see land, because it does sway, the momentum, and things. Basically, it changes the landscape a little bit for some team, some division. And in this case, he signed with the Tennessee Titans. Let's go ahead and pull up the tweet about what he signed for. Ian Rappaport on DeAndre Hopkins, two-year, $26 million deal with the Titans. There are $3 million available in incentives. I may have seen even more than that from someone else, but if he reaches 95 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns, he gets all of it. Here's the full breakdown. Just an interesting way to look at, how the team kind of broke up incentives here for him. And how I hope he gets all of it. Obviously, I hope he hits all these marks. I believe he's totally capable of hitting all these marks. Actually, I don't think they're that, far-fetched for him, to be honest with you. So this is, an interesting situation. I've seen the debate left and right, back and forth. Was this a good spot for DeAndre Hopkins to pick? Is it good for the Titans? Is it good for both parties involved and Hopkins as well? Who benefits from this as fantasy? Do we care? Is it relevant? Is it, a bad landing place for him? I'll say this. DeAndre Hopkins landing with the Titans, I don't think is a negative thing. I don't think it's negative because I believe he's going to get all the targets he needs. We know that he is a target hog on any team he's on, any quarterback that he has, any offensive coach. DeAndre Hopkins gets all the work. It is what it is. The Titans are actually a clear path to all that work because they have Burks, the young wide receiver, who a lot of people, kind of hoping for. But in terms of this, he's obviously going to push Burks back, no doubt, no question. And in this case, there's no reason why this team would not just feed the hell out of the passes to DeAndre Hopkins. He is, in theory, the Derrick Henry of the passing game at this point. So I believe if you're asking for fantasy purposes, DeAndre Hopkins all day long. If you're saying, is he top 20? Yes. Is he top 15? Yes. I can see him pushing top 12, top 10. He's definitely able to belong in that conversation. He's talented enough. I don't care about his age. I don't care about any prior injuries. I don't care about any of that. This is a good situation. He's healthy, as we all assume. The age has not caught up with him in terms of his skills and ability. I know it doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound super desirable, but I do think that this will play out well for him. I do want to show this from Player Profiler. They put reason DeAndre Hopkins isn't washed. And it just kind of breaks down some of his stuff here: his average cushion, his air yard share, win rate versus man. Obviously, you can see he's top 5 in all these categories that they're sharing here: elite separator, elite target commander, elite receiver. Titans. Hashtag Titans, because they should be most excited about him. But we all are excited about him. Again, like, there's no reason for this not to be a, reason for anyone to be unhappy, whether it's from a fantasy perspective, whether it's from a Titan fans perspective, a DeAndre Hopkins fans perspective. This really played out well for, for everyone involved. Obviously, unless you're one of the fans that wanted him to go to a team that you wanted him to go to, that of course didn't play out. And for instance, speaking along that, Patriots were willing to match the Titans' max total of $15 million offer for DeAndre Hopkins per Albert Breer. The issue came down to structure, as the Pats offer came with a far higher percentage of that tied to incentives. So the Patriots were willing to match the amount, but the way they were going to get to that amount was through incentives. DeAndre Hopkins obviously took the more clear path to the money. Money always speaks, money always wins. In this case, honestly, I don't think, team wise, I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference. I mean, going to Tannehill, the veteran quarterback, a team with Derrick Henry, a team that's going to no doubt feed him all the targets. It's probably just a better overall, especially I'm always speaking from a fantasy football perspective here or a DFS perspective. It definitely, I think I'd rather be with the Titans and the Patriots, to be all honest here, because the Patriots, you're going to get, this situation where you never are sure, are they going to feed him every single game? And when you think that they will, like, how could they not? They try to outsmart you and they start throwing the ball to Devontae Parker, or they're, running the ball the entire game. They do all that weird stuff that I personally don't want to see. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not surprised if DeAndre Hopkins also didn't just chase the money, but just the opportunity probably felt better to me. I mean, I just have to assume that. And we are used to players choosing the path to win. I don't necessarily think the Patriots are a better opportunity to win either. I know people like to make the Titans jokes right now, but I think this is good for everybody involved. And the Titans are obviously making this last push, to win, right? With Derrick Henry still under contract, Ryan Tannehill's getting older. They're going to obviously move on to a rookie running back or Malik at some point here. So, this is kind of their last push, I feel like, in terms of making a run at the Super Bowl. So I respect it. I'm not mad at it. I thought this tweet was also, worth sharing. DeAndre Hopkins has played with Matt Schaub, Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer, TJ Yates, Brandon Weeden, Brock Osweiler, Tom Savage, and AJ McCarron. I think he'll be okay with Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball. I think that says it all right there. When you have your concern about Ryan Tannehill, I think that says it all. Ryan Tannehill isn't elite. He isn't even who he used to be probably at this point, but we've seen him, produce at a high level with wide receivers in the past, not just with the Titans, with the Dolphins. So it's not like this is uncommon to him. And this is going to be one of the most skilled wide receivers he's worked with. I'm a super big fan of DeAndre Hopkins. If you can't tell, like, I love the guy's game. I love his skill. I love his personality. I love his attitude. I love his approach to the game. So in this case, I can't knock a DeAndre Hopkins signing with the Titans. No matter how bad we want to try to pull that, I can't do it. So if you have a reason why you hate this move, other than you wishing your team would have signed him, let us know in the comments. But from a fantasy perspective, again, if you're asking, hey, Neil, how good do you think he is? I think top 12, no question, is an opportunity, is a mark for him. Is where I would like to see him. Is where I believe I can see him. So I think he's that good. I think the team will know how to use him, feed him the targets. They're not going to do anything stupid. They're not going to outsmart themselves. This is, very cut and dry for me. I think he still has the ability. We know what he does when he gets the targets. He's elite. There's just no question about it. So top 12 upside is where I'm at with this. 100%. So if you're asking from a fantasy perspective, that's where I'm at. The cool thing is you'll get him at a value. A lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people aren't excited about the move to the Titans. A lot of people aren't excited about, Ryan Tannehill being his quarterback. A lot of people aren't excited because they say, well, this is just an offense that runs the ball more than the average team. So you're going to get him at an okay value. That's the beauty of all this. So this is like a win-win-win-win-win. That's what this is right here. Like I'm gonna draft right now, a Scott Fishbowl draft, and I actually drafted DeAndre Hopkins, and I can check and see what round exactly that I got him in. But what I will say is that my thinking was I drafted him before he signed with the Titans, before he actually made that decision. So I just felt that, hey, wherever he goes, I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with it. I'm fine with that. I actually got him in the 7th round. Come on, that's great value in my opinion. And people might have got him later in Scott Fishbowl. I don't know. That's the boundary where I didn't want to go any further. I didn't want to push it any further. I felt comfortable with it there. And again, I was comfortable with wherever he signed. So I just was going to push it as far as I felt comfortable and felt that nobody else was going to take him. But I'm good with this. To me, that's a steal. For me, that's win-win-win-win-win. And there ain't no looking back at it. I'm all for this signing. I wasn't really going to be against it no matter where he went, to be honest. But I do like him in Tennessee more than I like him in New England, if we're being honest about it. And I'm curious. Again, if you don't like the move, why? Other than, don't tell me you wanted him to sign with your team. We all did. We all wanted him to sign with our team. That's not the argument I want to hear. I want to hear a legitimate argument for why DeAndre Hopkins will struggle in Tennessee. Why DeAndre Hopkins won't work out with the Titans. Why in fantasy football you're going to pass on DeAndre Hopkins. I want to hear that. Let me know. drop it in the comments. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into topic number 3. NBA players are not getting to force themselves out of teams these days, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. If you caught last week's episode, we talked about Damian Lillard and how the Blazers mentioned that they will not just trade Damian Lillard because Damian Lillard wants to be traded. They will not be forced into the move. Obviously, they want to keep him. If he's not willing to stay, which is the clear, clear message that he sent, he said he only wants to be traded to the Heat. The team is looking at it like this: hey, in the past, teams may have just said, forget it. We'll just get whatever we can get from the Heat and move on. The Blazers are at least trying to be, whether it's creative, whether they're trying to get other teams involved so they can get, pull more resources out of those teams, or whether they're being, just kind of drawing a line in the sand with the Heat. Whatever they're doing, they're taking their time. They're not rushing into it. There's nothing to gain from them, right? We talked about it last week. There's nothing to gain from rushing the process. And you're asking, well, Neil, what are we talking about today, though? Why are you bringing up Damian Lillard again today? The reason I'm bringing him up is because of this. Keith Pompey here posted, he obviously covers the Sixers because it's Pompey on Sixers. If we don't get either a very good player or something we can turn into a very good player, we are not going to do it. 76ers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey tells 97.5 FM of trading James Harden. So here we are in a situation where a top flight player in James Harden is asking to be traded. The team, again, is in no rush to trade him. They would prefer to keep him, just like the Blazers would prefer to keep Dame. If they can't keep him and he's forcing their hand, he may have a team that he's forcing their hand to as well. I've seen teams like the Clippers and stuff. I'm not sure if he's like only given that as an option though, or if it's just kind of his preferred choice. James Harden obviously has been traded more times than once. And I don't know if it's a locked in thing where he only wants one spot, but at the end of the day, the 76ers would prefer to keep him. If not keep him, they're not rushing out to trade him either. They're going to say, hey, we want a really good player in return, or we want the picks, that we can get to get a good player. We have no rush. We have no urgency to make this trade. So whoever wants him needs to make it worth it for us. The problem that becomes from this is, what do the 76ers think James Harden is worth? What do they think teams should be giving them for him? The likelihood is it's higher than teams are going to want to pay. And so will we have this situation where James Harden stays with the Sixers, kind of, makes up with them? Or do we think that, no matter how we slice this, he will get traded at some point? I ask that because we do have other stuff here in regards to this. And one of them is this. From NBA Central, the Sixers want an all-star level all-star level return for James Harden. So that makes you feel like it's not draft picks, right? They want a player to win right now. So they want an all-star level return, whether that's one player or whether that's a few players. We have no clue exactly, how specific they are with this. Philadelphia's position on a Harden trade has been described as unreasonable by competing executives. Of course, they think it's unreasonable because they want, the player for as little as possible. The Sixers could just be asking for a ridiculous return. And if they are asking for a ridiculous return, it puts James Harden in a tough spot. It puts the team in a tough spot, and it puts its, potential trade partners in a tough spot. Ultimately, I feel like the 76ers are really just pushing for James Harden to stay. They're trying to convince him, and they figure the more time they take, the better chance they have of him staying, especially if they keep asking for too much. No team is really willing to take the offer. And so they're like, hey, James, listen, we're not getting the return fee that we need. And so we're going to just kind of let you sit here, and then he's just going to want to play. That's kind of the situation I'm thinking it is. We also have, his teammates, Joel Embiid, for instance. Rachel Nichols says she spoke to him about, James Harden's trade request, and B said he's hopeful that Harden's mindset can be changed. This is, again, what I'm talking about. This is a pretty veteran team. So he's got Joel Embiid, MVP of the NBA last season. He's got Patrick Beverly. He's got guys here that can try to convince him, hey, man, we're a veteran team. You're not starting over. You're not starting fresh. This is, veterans. This is one of the best players in the NBA. We're gritty veterans. Let's take another run at this, and so that may be exactly what's taking place here for James Harden to stay with the Rockets. I also wanted to show what his stats James Harden has done so far, right? In the NBA, just from like some of his things here. This is from Hoops Hype. In points, he's number 25 all time. He's ahead of Ray Allen and right behind Patrick Ewing. Rebounds number 215 all time. Assists number 20 all time. He's up there. Steals number 47 all time. So I mean, Harden's accomplished a lot from a statistical standpoint. You kind of forget almost just because he's always on different teams and he's chasing these championships and he's not. I don't know what it is in terms of he is a household name. He is an elite player. He is, one of the top names. Something about James Harden. I don't know if he just doesn't interview as much. He doesn't hit the media as much. He's not on podcasts, on YouTube, I don't know what it is on social media. Something about him. I mean, he's always out. He's always out partying. He's always out in the streets. He's always, getting popped by paparazzi and pictures and, you know, dealing with women that are in the media and headlines. And so it's not that. It's just something about him. I feel like his name doesn't ring bells as popular as some of the other top players in the league for some reason, right? Like the Steph Currys, the LeBron James, these kind of guys. I feel like he's up there skill wise and ability wise. James Harden should get more love than what he gets. Is what I'm trying to say. The attention should be there more. And then staying along that same lines, he has a 651 to 349 record in his career. Obviously, his career record doesn't have everything to do with him. It's not just him. OKC had a really good team while he was there. The Houston had some really good teams while he was there. I'm not saying it's all, to credit to him, but just saying he's been a winner. His stats are, elite level. His ability is elite level. So the Sixers don't want to see him go, just like the Blazers don't want to see Dame go. It's understandable. But at the same time, there's no reason to rush out of any of these situations if the return doesn't make sense. Why would these teams want to not be able to compete at such a high level, at a higher level as they've been used to, as they're accustomed to? Well, not the Blazers in this situation. They're used to Dame competing at a high level, but not them necessarily. But I just think it was interesting, right? Like that record, right? We can't give him all the credit for it, but that's a really high winning record, man. That's nothing nothing to ignore. But again, I'm curious what you guys think. Is James Harden going to eventually force his way out of here? Does he have a team in mind? Or is the team, doing the right thing by taking their time, being patient with it? I think they are. I'm glad to see all these teams, Blazers, Sixers, and any other team that takes a stand against these trade demands, to try to get the most out of it, to not rush into them. And I respect it. I totally respect it. It's kind of like the running backs we spoke about earlier. I also respect them. I respect the team's position. I respect the player's position. In all these situations, I see both sides. But the market is the market. The value is the value that it currently stands at. There's nothing you can do about it except outperform it and push it. That's it. That's it for today, guys. I appreciate you for joining me as always. I do want to end on a Rival Fantasy note. Don't forget that you can visit rivalfantasy.com. They are what powers this show. Rivalfantasy.com. Right now, obviously, you have challenges available for Major League Baseball. When other sports are live and active, like NBA, NFL, there will be challenges for them as well. Season long is getting ready to launch, but for now, you can get on there and you can mock draft. This way, you can get and get prepared for your leagues. You'll be able to sign up your league on here, move your league over here. Season long is going to be really fun on Rival Fantasy. You also have Fantasy Bingo, a very unique way to play fantasy sports. You put your roster in, you buy the card, and you try to get yourself a win here. You try to, diagonal, vertically, four in a corner, or of course the whole card. Whether you win or lose will depend on how many of these achievements you hit from the roster you created. And then of course you got Fantasy Book here, which will be a way for you to pick up from 2 players up to 5 players. Pick the over under on these guys. When you do that, you put the amount you want to bet from $1 to $10. Obviously, your win payout goes up and down depending on how many players you're using. And to remind you, when there is other sports, NBA, NFL at the same time, you can actually mix and match players. It doesn't have to be just one sport. So again, way more fun, different ways to play. Rival Fantasy has it all. If you sign up today using the link in the description, use the link in the description because you're going to get a up to $200 match on your first deposit, plus a $25 free voucher for you to play on there as well. So $225 in value right there just for signing up. You don't have to deposit $200 on your first deposit. Of course, you can go on there, $20. You put 20, they're matching 20. And then if you're using that code down there, you're also going to get the $25 voucher. Can't lose. You can't lose. If you have any questions about it, you can also hit us up in the comments, or they have a chat on the site, or you can follow on social media, ask any questions you may have. Guys, I appreciate you for joining me as always. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you more than you know. Just make sure you have hit subscribe so you catch all future episodes. Like this episode, share it, help us push this out to the masses. We appreciate you guys. Till next week, love you. And maybe watch one of these episodes or clips or whatever you feel like doing. Really appreciate you guys. We're out.